the nanny protects Millionaire's daughter from her cruel stepmother. And he can't believe the truth. The iron door slammed shut, the lock turning with a finality that felt like a sentence passed. Damp, suffocating air filled the basement, swallowing every breath until only a fragile sob quivered in the darkness. Isabella, whom everyone called Bella, was only 5 years old. Her frail legs forced her to lean on rough wooden crutches. She sat huddled on the stone floor, small hands gripping the crutches as if they were her only weapons against the shadows and the rats hidden in the corners. Her breathing came shallow, each gasp dissolving into the suffocating smell of mold. "It was only a broken cup," Bella whispered, her voice quivering, as though trying to reassure herself. Tears streaked her cheeks as her eyes searched for even the faintest sliver of light through the door. But there was nothing, only thick, merciless darkness that swallowed every hope. Above, the grand Winters mansion stood in an eerie silence. Hallways draped in carpet, polished stone walls, chandeliers glittering, all of it masked something colder beneath. Victoria Winters, tall and poised with golden hair, strode across the marble floor. Her heels struck sharply, rhythmically, her face unyielding. To her, Bella's cries were nothing but an irritation, a noise to be silenced. Inside the basement, Bella clutched her crutches tighter. In her young imagination, they were not just wood and iron, but magic swords her late mother had once told her about. Every time Bella held them, she became a little knight, strong enough to stand against the dark. Yet as the lock clanged shut, that imagined courage crumbled, leaving fear rising like a tide. She whispered a trembling vow. "I'll be good. I won't make noise again. Please don't leave me here." Her small voice faded into emptiness. No answer came. Upstairs, the clock ticked with dry mechanical rhythm. The mansion resembled a fortress sealed tight, where silence and order were law. Victoria sat upright in the parlor, her cold eyes reflecting the glow of a crystal chandelier. She sipped her tea slowly, lips curving not in warmth, but in satisfaction, certain that everything remained under control. To her, the cries of a disabled child were nothing more than a nuisance, a sound to be erased. Down in the basement, Bella curled into herself, her head pressed against the icy stone wall. Her little heart pounded wildly, as though trying to break free. She remembered faintly her mother's face, the soft voice that once whispered, "My darling girl, these crutches are magic swords. When you hold them, you're as strong as a knight." Another tear slipped down her cheek. She tried to imagine her mother's smile, gentle and warm, but in the darkness it faded like smoke. Loneliness coiled around her chest, binding her like invisible ropes. Outside, wind swept past tall glass windows, carrying the mountain fog. Its howling merged with the faint sobs below, composing a sorrowful tune that foreshadowed what was yet to come. In that moment, the Winters mansion was not a home. It was a prison, and within its walls a fragile soul trembled, yearning for arms to hold her, for a voice to soothe her. Yet the darkness offered only ruthless silence. The iron door had shut, but Bella's sobs would not vanish. They seeped into the cracks of stone, echoing through the grand hallways like a secret begging to be uncovered. That afternoon, an old bus rattled to a stop on the gravel road before the Winters estate. The door creaked open, and Mariana Alvarez, a 40-year-old woman, stepped down. Her sun-kissed skin, slender but sturdy frame, and weary eyes spoke of years of hardship. In her hand was a faded cloth bag, everything she owned in one place. Mariana had traveled nearly 5 hours. From the small town where she and her children lived, she had set off with a single hope. This job would rescue her family from debt and uncertainty. She had left behind Mateo, 17, and Sofia, 15, still too young to shoulder the weight of adulthood, yet forced to grow up too soon after tragedy struck. Her husband, a construction worker, had died suddenly in a worksite accident. His death carried away not just his life, but also the family's fragile stability, leaving behind debts and the looming threat of foreclosure. Since then, Mariana had taught part-time and stitched clothes to make ends meet, but it was never enough. When she heard of a live-in housekeeper position for a wealthy family, the salary large enough to cover debts and support her children, she didn't hesitate. As she stepped through the wrought iron gate, Mariana looked up at the towering mansion. Its stone walls loomed high, tall glass windows fogged with mist, the dark roof cutting sharply against the gray sky. The house was grand, yes, but it radiated a coldness, like a castle drained of warmth. A gust of wind carried the resinous scent of pines from the surrounding forest, sending a shiver down her spine. Inside, the silence was unsettling. Carpeted corridors stretched endlessly. Classical statues stood frozen in place. Heavy portraits stared down, as if judging the newcomer. Every detail was perfect, too perfect, its flawless order whispering of secrets better left unspoken, stirring unease instead of comfort. It was here that Mariana first met Victoria Winters. Tall, with golden hair cascading in flawless waves, she wore a spotless white dress. Her eyes swept over the newcomer with piercing sharpness, her face betraying nothing but pride. "Alvarez, correct?" Her voice was clipped, cold. "Yes, ma'am. I am Mariana Alvarez." Victoria gave a curt nod and took a few deliberate steps, her heels striking the marble like blades. "In this house, there are 3 rules. First, silence. Second, order. And third, you are never to disturb my husband or his daughter. Keep these and your work will be smooth. Fail them." Her words trailed off, leaving a heavy, threatening silence. Mariana bowed her head. "I understand, ma'am." At that very moment, a faint sound floated up from below, the fragile sob of a child, broken and small, like a bird trapped in a cage. Mariana froze, her eyes flickering, but Victoria gave no reaction. She behaved as though she had heard nothing, or perhaps chose to ignore it entirely. Mariana's chest tightened. The sound struck something buried deep within her. Memories she had tried to bury came rushing back, the image of a 12-year-old girl crouching beneath the kitchen table, her skin bruised purple by her drunken father's belt. That terrified crying from long ago echoed in the sobs of this unseen child. "Ms. Alvarez," Victoria's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Follow me. I'll show you the staff quarters. Rest tonight. Tomorrow will be a long day." Mariana quickly nodded. She trailed behind that cold figure, but inside her heart weighed heavy. The sound of that fragile sob clung to her chest, a voiceless plea she could not unhear. On her first night in the small staff room, Mariana barely slept. She tossed and turned on the narrow bed as the wind howled through the tall glass windows, blending with the haunting sound she thought she still heard from the basement. No matter how tightly she shut her eyes, the echo of a child's sob lingered in her mind. When the pale light of dawn slipped through the curtains, Mariana slipped on her worn sweater and stepped into the hallway. The long corridor lay silent, save for the dry ticking of the clock. She went down to the kitchen, setting herself to work, scrubbing the floor, washing cups, slicing bread. The vast space felt empty, like a house that had never truly been lived in. Around 7:30, footsteps echoed down the grand staircase. Mariana paused, turning her head. A tall man appeared. Edward Winters, master of the house. He wore a press suit, briefcase in hand. His face carried the look of a man burdened with endless work, eyes shadowed with fatigue. As he passed through the living room, he gave only a brief nod to Mariana before hurrying out, as though there was no time to truly see anyone. Mariana stood still for a moment. This was the father of the child, the only person who could protect her, yet he seemed too distant, too consumed by his own world to notice what happened under his roof. Before she could dwell longer, another sound broke the silence. Not brisk, commanding steps, but a slow, labored rhythm. Thump, thump, steady, yet fragile. Mariana's heart tightened. On the staircase, a small figure appeared. Bella? She wore an oversized pale sweater, her face ghostly pale, her wide eyes heavy with weariness. Each step demanded all her strength. Her thin hands clutched the wooden crutches, her small frame trembling with the fear of falling. Mariana held her breath, watching every careful movement. When Bella finally reached the last step, her gaze met Mariana's. For a fleeting moment, their eyes locked, one pair full of fear and hesitation, the other brimming with tenderness and sorrow. Mariana offered the warmest smile she could. "Good morning, sweetheart," she whispered, afraid her voice might shatter the fragile moment. Bella did not answer, yet she did not look away either. In her eyes, Mariana glimpsed something, an ache for closeness, buried deep beneath layers of fear. Then a sharp voice rang out from upstairs. "Isabella!" Bella flinched, her crutches wobbling. Mariana instinctively took a step forward, ready to catch her, but froze as Victoria Winters appeared. She descended slowly, draped in a silk robe, her face etched with irritation. "What are you doing down here? How many times must I tell you? Stay in your room until I call for you." Bella lowered her head, lips trembling. I'm sorry." Before Mariana could utter a word, Victoria seized the child's arm and pulled her toward the dining room. As she passed, her cold eyes flicked at Mariana, a silent warning. Mariana bent down again, resuming her scrubbing, though her chest twisted with pain. The image of the fragile little girl wobbling on her crutches, her frightened eyes brimming with silence, replayed endlessly in her mind. And in that moment, she knew an invisible thread had already begun to tie her fate to Bella's. That afternoon, as the Winters mansion sank into its usual silence, Victoria left for a social tea gathering with her wealthy friends. Mariana knew this was her rare chance. In the kitchen, she prepared a small tray, a few star-shaped cookies, a glass of orange juice, and neatly folded napkins. Her hands trembled slightly, not out of fear of being caught, but out of worry for the fragile child upstairs. She climbed the staircase softly, each creak of wood echoing in the hushed air. Stopping before a white-painted door, she tapped gently. "Bella, it's Mariana. I brought you something to eat." There was a long pause. Then slow, uneven steps approached from within. The door cracked open, and wide, dark eyes peeked out, filled with hesitation and curiosity. I'm not allowed to let anyone in," Bella whispered, her voice trembling. Mariana smiled softly. "I know, but your stepmother isn't here today. I only want to make sure you're not hungry." Bella hesitated, then opened the door a little wider. Mariana stepped inside and set the tray on a small table. The sight of the room made her shiver. Too neat, too staged, like a showroom rather than a child's space. Books stacked too high to reach, dusty toys lining the shelves, everything kept out of the child's grasp. "These are cookies I made. Would you like to try one?" Bella's eyes lit up at the sight of the star-shaped treats. She pulled out a chair, sitting down, her crutches leaning against the wall. "How did you know I like stars?" Mariana's gaze softened. "I didn't. I just guessed. Because stars shine brightest in the dark." Bella froze. A shy, tentative smile tugged at her lips. "My real mom? She used to say that too." Her voice wavered. "She said my crutches were magic swords, that when I held them, I was as strong as a knight." Mariana's heart ached. She leaned down, straightening the crutches beside the chair. "Your mother was wise, and I believe you are a brave little knight." Bella studied her for a long moment, eyes torn between doubt and longing. "Do you Really think so?" "I'm certain," Mariana nodded, her tone dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a secret. Bella lowered her gaze, whispering, "But when I make noise, my stepmother gets angry. She locks me in the dark basement. I'm so scared." A chill swept through Mariana. She steadied her voice, gently taking the child's trembling hand. "Listen to me, Bella. No child deserves that. None of this is your fault." Tears welled in Bella's eyes. "But," she said, "if I tell Dad, he'll send me away. To a place where nobody wants me." Mariana bit her lip, fighting her rising anger. Her voice grew firm, yet tender. "No, Bella. Your father loves you, and you deserve to be loved." Bella went quiet, as though weighing whether to believe her. Then, in a pleading tone, "If one day you have to leave, you'll abandon me too, won't you?" The question pierced Mariana's heart like a blade. She blinked back tears, placing a hand on the child's small shoulder. "No, Bella, I'll be here, and whenever you need me, just call. I promise." Bella reached for a cookie, nibbling tiny bites, her eyes shining with fragile joy. The heaviness in the room seemed to soften. She began speaking about dragons from an old storybook, her words halting but filled with imagination. When she tried to mimic a dragon's growl, Mariana chuckled. In that moment, the once cold room felt warmer, almost alive. But the spell was short-lived. From the distance came the sharp click of high heels striking stone. Victoria had returned. Mariana quickly gathered the tray, straightened the chair, erasing every trace of the warmth that had bloomed. Bella froze, wide-eyed with fear. Leaning close, Mariana whispered, "This stays our secret, all right?" Bella pressed a tiny finger to her lips and nodded, her eyes gleaming with innocent complicity. Mariana gave her small hand a quick squeeze before slipping out the door. As it closed behind her, Bella remained inside, a faint smile playing on her lips. And within her heart, a fragile seed of hope had already begun to grow. In the days that followed, Mariana grew accustomed to the rhythm of life inside the Winters mansion. Her tasks repeated endlessly, rising before dawn, scrubbing floors, preparing breakfast, washing laundry. All of it carried out beneath a silence so heavy it pressed on the chest. And the longer she stayed, the clearer one truth became. Edward Winters, the one man who could protect Bella, was utterly blind to his daughter's suffering. At breakfast, Mariana often observed quietly. Edward sat at the head of the table, mind buried in reports and schedules, rarely lifting his eyes. Across from him, Victoria spoke in sweet but pointed tones, claiming Bella was stubborn, difficult, and inventing stories for attention. Edward would only furrow his brow, sigh, and reply, "I know it's not easy for you. Just try to be patient with her." Each time, Mariana's chest burned. Patient? How could patience be the answer when a 5-year-old was being locked in darkness, stripped of laughter, treated as a burden? What Bella needed wasn't patience. She needed arms to hold her, faith to believe her, and above all, a father willing to stand by her side. But Edward remained silent. One evening, Mariana witnessed a scene she could never forget. The family gathered for dinner beneath the chandelier's glow. Bella sat quietly, eyes downcast, hands clutching her spoon. When the spoon accidentally clinked against the porcelain bowl with a faint ting, Victoria's face tightened instantly. "How many times must I say it? No noise at the table." Bella stiffened, nearly dropping the spoon. Her lips trembled. I'm sorry." Edward looked up briefly, casting a fleeting glance at his daughter, then lowered his gaze again to cut his meat, saying nothing. From her place in the corner, Mariana's heart twisted. She saw Bella's small hands trembling, her wide eyes shimmering with unshed tears, too afraid to let them fall. a child learning to swallow her cries in order to survive silence. And Edward's silence itself became another prison. That night, back in her small room, Mariana sat for a long time, unmoving. She realized Bella's pain came not only from Victoria's cruelty, but from her father's absence. Not a father who was cruel, but one so consumed by his own world that he failed to see his little girl slowly breaking apart. Mariana clenched her hands tightly. In her heart rose a vow, quiet but resolute. If her father could not yet open his eyes, then at the very least she would be the first to believe in Bella. One drizzling afternoon, while dusting the hallway upstairs, Mariana heard a loud thud from Bella's room. Alarmed, she rushed to the door and found the little girl sprawled on the wooden floor. One crutch had fallen aside, and a red mark was already blooming across her forehead. "Bella!" Mariana cried, kneeling to lift her up. "Are you badly hurt?" Bella's tear-filled eyes looked up at her, lips trembling. I just wanted the book on the shelf. My mom used to read it to me. I miss her." Mariana clasped the small hand tightly. She glanced around the room at the towering shelves placed far beyond the reach of a 5-year-old. Her chest ached. "Bella, don't climb by yourself again. It's too dangerous. Just ask and I'll help you. I promise I'll read with you whenever you want." Bella leaned against her shoulder, hot tears soaking through the fabric of Mariana's blouse. Wrapping her arms around the child, Mariana felt the raw hunger for love, so fierce it was almost desperate. But the warmth of that moment did not last. A cold voice sliced through the hallway. "What's going on here?" Mariana turned sharply. Victoria Winters stood at the far end, arms crossed, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Bella flinched, shrinking back in fear. Mariana rose to her feet, heart racing, and tried to keep her voice steady. "She fell. I was only—" "No need to explain." Victoria advanced, seizing Bella's hand, her words clipped and sharp. "Back to your room, now." Bella lowered her head, but her eyes flicked toward Mariana, filled with fear and silent pleading. Mariana whispered quickly, "It's all right. I'm here." Victoria's gaze flashed with suspicion. She tightened her grip on Bella, dragging her inside and slamming the door so hard the hallway quivered. Mariana stood frozen, her chest constricting. She knew she had revealed too much, that her bond with Bella was no longer hidden, and Victoria had seen it. That night, in her small staff room, Mariana sat by the window listening to the wind whip through the trees. She called her mother-in-law back home, her voice trembling. "Mother, I'm worried about the little girl. I can't just look away." On the other end, the elderly woman's voice was heavy with concern. "Mariana, you already have Mateo and Sofia. Don't drag the troubles of the rich into your own life. Think of yourself. Think of your children." Mariana said nothing. The words were true, yet the image of Bella being dragged away, her eyes wide with terror, replayed endlessly in her mind. When the call ended, Mariana sat in silence for a long time. She knew that from now on, every step she took in this house would carry greater risk. But her heart also knew one thing. There was no turning back. She had touched Bella's fear. She had made a promise, and Mariana would rather face the danger than betray it. After the day Bella fell, Mariana knew she could no longer delay. With every passing day, the little girl sank deeper into fear, while Edward continued to turn away. But within Mariana, a quiet resolve had formed. She had to make the father open his eyes. One afternoon, as Edward ended a long call in his study, Mariana gathered her courage and knocked on the door. "Mr. Winters," she said softly, her voice unsteady from tension. Edward looked up, frowning. "What is it? Trouble with the work?" "No, sir, it's about Bella." His frown deepened, as though ready to dismiss her, but Mariana stood firm, her eyes unwavering. Have you ever truly listened to your daughter? Bella doesn't need more silence. She needs a father." Edward gave a short, awkward laugh, edged with discomfort. "You don't understand. Victoria is very devoted. Strict, yes, but she loves the girl." Mariana drew a deep breath, her heart pounding, but her voice remained steady. "I'm sorry, but I believe you've been misled. Bella is lonely, and that loneliness is consuming her." The silence that followed was heavy. Edward started to protest, but when he met Mariana's unyielding gaze, he faltered. In those eyes lay a truth he had avoided for too long. At last, Edward gave a faint nod, his voice dropping low. "All right, I'll try." That evening, carrying Mariana's words heavy on his heart, Edward pushed open a door he had avoided for months. Inside, Bella looked up, startled to see her father standing in the doorway. "What are you doing?" His voice wavered, uncertain. I'm reading," Bella replied softly. Edward sat beside the bed, forcing a smile. "Would you like to talk for a bit?" Bella studied him, her eyes torn between doubt and yearning. After a long silence, her voice trembled as she asked, "Dad, why do you never play with me? Do you really love me?" The question struck Edward like a blade to the heart. He froze, eyes blurring. All the years of busyness, every excuse about work, now they rose against him as silent accusations. He pulled his daughter into his arms, holding her tight. His voice broke. "I'm sorry, Bella. I was wrong. You are the most precious thing in my life." Bella trembled in his embrace, tears streaming, but for the first time she no longer felt utterly alone. From that night on, Edward began to watch more closely. He listened to the tone in Victoria's voice, noticed the coldness in her scolding, the disdain in her gaze. Slowly, the mask began to fall. Victoria sensed it too. The change in Edward's eyes unsettled her. No longer did he look at her with unquestioning trust. His eyes had turned probing, suspicious. At breakfast one morning, Bella shyly asked if she could bring a book to the table. In the past, Edward would have ignored it, but this time he looked directly at her, his voice gentle. "You may bring it, as long as it makes you comfortable." Victoria faltered, her smile stiffening. A flash of cold anger flickered in her eyes, the unmistakable realization that her grip on power was beginning to slip. Edward's change unsettled Victoria. Every probing look from her husband, every gentle word he gave to Bella, felt like blades cutting into her control. One morning, Bella whispered timidly, "I want to go downstairs to say goodbye to Dad before he leaves." Her eyes shone with fragile hope, but Victoria's hand clamped tightly around hers, her voice cold. "No, don't bother your father." Bella burst into tears, her crutches crashing to the floor with a sharp crack that split the silence. With cold fury, Victoria yanked her small arm and dragged her mercilessly down toward the basement. The iron door slammed, the turning of the key echoing like thunder. At the far end of the hall, Mariana had seen everything. Her heart shattered. Without hesitation, she rushed to her room, hands trembling as she grabbed the phone. "Mr. Winters, please, come home at once. Bella is in danger." That afternoon, Mariana waited at the gate. As the sleek black car pulled in, she ran forward, breathless. "Follow me, right now." Edward barely had time to speak before she pulled him down to the basement. The damp air hit him, mold stinging his nose. Mariana flicked on the light. Bella sat curled in the corner, trembling, clutching her crutches. "My daughter!" Edward cried, rushing to hold her. Bella sobbed, clinging to him as if to life itself. The light revealed stained walls, the icy floor, the suffocating air of a cell. Edward's eyes burned red as fury and disbelief collided within him. At that moment, Victoria appeared at the doorway, her voice sharp. "Richard, let me explain." "Explain?" Edward roared, his voice shaking the walls. "You dare lock a 5-year-old child in this dungeon and dare call it discipline?" Victoria lifted her chin, bitterness dripping from her words. "She's a burden. She ruins everything. I've sacrificed too much for a child who isn't even mine." The air froze. Her confession tore apart the last of her facade. Edward rose slowly, still cradling Bella in his arms. His gaze burned with cold fury. "I've been blind for too long, but today I choose my daughter. You have no place in this house anymore." "You can't do this to me," Victoria shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. "I can. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers. Security." 2 guards appeared, seizing Victoria by the arms. She kicked and screamed, her heels clattering against the floor, her cries reverberating through the corridors. But no one answered. The grand doors slammed shut behind her, leaving only hollow echoes. Her voice faded into the night, bitter and empty. In the living room, Edward sank onto the sofa, still clutching Bella tightly. He stroked her soft hair, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Bella. I was blind. I left you to suffer alone for too long." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Dad, don't leave me in the dark again." Edward held her tighter, his own tears falling. "Never again. You are my light, and I will never let you be lost." In that moment, the suffocating weight that had smothered the house seemed to lift. From the darkness, the first light had broken through. From the day Victoria left, the atmosphere in the Winters mansion changed completely. The walls that once echoed with cold silence now seemed to breathe lighter. In place of scolding and chilling quiet came soft conversations and the laughter of a little girl rediscovering her childhood. Edward began spending more time at home. He canceled business trips, choosing to work in his study so he could be near Bella every day. Breakfasts that had once been rushed now turned into warm moments. Edward listening as his daughter described her dreams or patiently waiting as she proudly showed him her clumsy little drawings. One morning, he took Bella to see a rehabilitation specialist. After a thorough check, the doctor smiled. "With the right therapy, her legs can improve greatly." Bella's eyes lit up, her face glowing with rare joy. "I'll work really hard, Dad. One day, I want to run in the garden with you." Edward squeezed her small hand tightly. "And I'll always run beside you." Each promise, each gesture of care, slowly untangled the invisible chains that had bound Bella's heart. The fear faded from her eyes, replaced with the innocence she should have always known. Mariana continued her daily work, but the house itself felt transformed. Every time she entered a room, Bella greeted her with a bright smile, her eyes shining. The little girl would often hurry, more like hobble, on her crutches to throw her arms around her, chattering cheerfully about the silliest things. On weekends, Matteo and Sofia came to visit. At first, Bella lingered shyly in a corner, but within minutes, the 3 children were giggling together as if they had been friends forever. Matteo taught Bella how to build robot puzzles, while Sofia showed her how to make colorful paper chains. Their laughter filled the once dark mansion, making it glow. From a distance, Edward watched, his heart swelling. He saw not only his daughter being healed, but also the image of a true family coming to life before his eyes. Mariana sat beside Bella, her gentle smile warming the room like firelight. And in that moment, Edward realized that it wasn't only Bella who had found her way out of loneliness and shadows. He had too. In the days that followed, peace slowly settled into the Winters mansion. Children's laughter now filled the spaces once consumed by silence and fear. One evening, after the children had gone to bed, Edward found Mariana sitting in the small garden behind the house. Lantern light fell softly on her face, serene and gentle. He paused for a moment, almost to make sure he wasn't dreaming. "Mariana," he called quietly. She turned, her kind eyes tinged with surprise. Edward stepped closer, his voice earnest. "You've given Bella not only care, but the faith to smile again. And you've given me hope, a hope I thought I had lost." Mariana remained silent, her eyes shimmering with emotion. He took her hand, his voice trembling, yet steady. "I don't want you here only as a housekeeper. I want you to be Bella's mother, and, if you'll allow, I want you to be my partner in life." Tears welled in Mariana's eyes. "Edward, are you sure? I have Mateo and Sophia. My life is far from perfect." Edward squeezed her hand firmly, smiling. "That's exactly why we need each other. I'm not searching for perfection. I'm searching for a family, and I believe we can build it together." A tear of happiness rolled down her cheek. "Then, yes, I will." A simple wedding was held in the mansion's garden. No extravagance, no grand banquet, just white flowers, golden sunlight, and the faces of those who truly mattered. Bella proudly walked down the flower-strewn path, her crutches no longer burdens, but magic swords of a little knight. Mateo and Sophia tossed paper petals, laughter rippling in the breeze. Edward and Mariana held hands, exchanging simple vows: to love, to protect, to build a real home together. When the minister declared them a family, applause erupted, mingling with the laughter of children. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Bella placed a drawing on the table. 5 figures holding hands: Edward, Mariana, Mateo, Sophia, and herself. Above them, in crooked letters, were the words, "My family." Edward hugged his daughter tightly, tears shimmering in his eyes. Mariana wrapped her arms around them both, and in that moment they knew they had found the rarest treasure of all. For family is not only bound by blood, but forged by choice, by those who stay, who love, and who protect through every storm. And sometimes the strongest families are the ones created by choice.